The wind knifed through Jon Snow's furs, tugging at the black cloak on his shoulders as if the wall itself wished to pull him back toward its cold heart. The night was clear and sharp above, a vault of stars scattered over the white expanse like ground glass. Below, the forests were a dark, endless sea. Ghost stood pressed against his leg, red eyes catching the torchlight, for glowing pale as moonlit snow. Jeor Mormont waited beside the Merlin, the old bear's dark cloak snapping, his bald head bare to the cold. The Lord Commander's torch spat and hissed, orange against the blue-black of the night. In his gloved fist he held a scroll, broken and retied, the wax smear of some distant seal flaked and dirty. "Do you know what this is, boy?" Mormont asked, his voice a low rumble swallowed by the wind. Jon's fingers had long since gone numb inside his gloves. He flexed them all the same. "A raven from the south, my lord." "Aye." The old bear's breath smoked the air. His eyes were dark and knowing. "You remember what I told you, when we rode out and found that dead man walking? You remember the blue eyes?" Jon swallowed. Ghost's ears twitched as if at some distant sound only the direwolf could hear. "I remember. I said we'd need the south, that the real war was coming, and the rest of it. The kings, their petty crowns, their squabbles, it was all dust." Mormont lifted the scroll slightly. "This is dust turned to poison." Jon's throat tightened. "Is it my father?" The old bear looked at him for a long time, and in that look Jon felt a weight as heavy as the wall itself. "Eddard Stark," Jeor Mormont said slowly, "confessed to treason in King's Landing. He was condemned and—" the old bear's jaw clenched under his gray beard. "He was executed, beheaded on the steps of the great September of Baelor." The world narrowed to the taste of iron and snow. For a moment Jon could hear nothing but the blood pounding in his ears. Ghost pressed closer, whining softly, the sound thin against the wind. Jon saw his father in his mind's eye, tall and quiet in Winterfell's godswood, a sword across his knees, the words of the old gods on his lips. Eddard Stark did not confess to lies. Eddard Stark did not kneel to butchers like Joffrey Baratheon. He wouldn't, Jon whispered. He wouldn't say he was a traitor. "No," Mormont agreed. "He wouldn't." Which means, one way or another, the boy on that throne is worse than a traitor. Worse than a fool. He lifted the scroll, then let his hand fall. "And somewhere to the south, your brother Robb Stark raises the banners of the north and marches to war against the Lannisters. The riverlands burn. The realm tears itself to pieces while the dead grow bold in the dark." Jon's eyes stung, and it wasn't from the wind. "My place is here," he said hoarsely, the old words of his vows rising up like a shield between grief and rage. "I swore." "Aye, you did." Mormont studied him. "And what did you swear, Snow?" To take no wife, hold no lands, father no children." The words came by rote, learned with a boy's fear in his throat. "I shall wear no crowns and win no glory. I shall live and die at my post. I am the sword in the darkness, the watcher on the walls, the shield that guards the realms of men." "The realms of men," Mormont repeated. "All the realms, not just the shivering fools who come to us in black. Tell me, boy, if the house at Winterfell burns and the wolves are scattered, what shield is left for the realms of men in the south?" "Tywin Lannister," he snorted. "Joffrey? Cersei? They'll tear each other apart while the others march down from the far north over a field of corpses." Jon stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying what Maester Aemon said to me before I came out into the cold tonight." Mormont's gaze flicked up briefly toward the Rookery Tower, dark against the stars. "He reminded me that once, when a Targaryen boy had to choose between love and duty, the realm drowned in blood. He said I was about to force another boy into the same choice." The old bear's eyes bored into Jon's. "I'm no Targaryen king. I'm an old crow with shit on his boots, but even I can see this much. If I chain you to this wall now, I might keep one good man for the watch, and lose thousands in the south when no Stark stands between them and lions." The words struck like hammer blows. "You can't release me from my vows," Jon said. No Lord Commander can. No, Mormont's breath smoked again as he sighed. The paper says one thing, the gods hear another. Listen to me. I won't put a rope round your neck if you leave this place. I won't send rangers after you. I won't name you deserter. Jon's heart slammed against his ribs. You would let me go? I would send you, Mormont growled, as my crow in a world of wolves. The South doesn't listen to old men in black. They might listen to a Stark son riding at his brother's side. Jon's chest ached. I'm no Stark. You know that. You've more Stark in you than most who carry the name. Mormont thrust the scroll into Jon's hand. The parchment rasped against his glove. Take it. Read it when you're alone. Remember every word. Then forget them. What matters is what comes next. Ghost's tail brushed his leg. A ghostly flick in the dark. The wall loomed to his back. To the south lay a world burning, and his brother somewhere in the smoke. What would you have me do? Jon asked. Jeor Mormont looked south, toward a darkness that stretched beyond sight. Ride, he said. Ride hard. Find Robb Stark. Tell him what you've seen. Tell him what marches in the snow beyond all crowns. And when the time comes, make him listen. The hurried scrape of leather on stone echoed in the small cell as Jon shoved spare shirts and hose into his saddlebags with numb, clumsy hands. The candle on the narrow shelf spat and guttered, its light painting the walls in trembling gold. His sword, Longclaw, lay across the pallet, the pale stone bear on its pommel watching him with blind eyes. Ghost paced the cramped space, restless, the pads of his feet making no sound. Every few steps the direwolf nosed at the door, then back at Jon as if to hurry him along. I still don't understand, Samwell Tarly whispered from the doorway, his round face blotched and damp. He's sending you? Just like that? What if the others find out? What if they think you're deserting? Jon cinched a strap, fingers trembling. They won't, he said. The old bear won't name me a deserter. He said so. But the vows, Sam said, voice cracking. You swore them. We all did. If you leave, you'll... The vows were to guard the realms of men. Jon paused, breathing hard, as if the air itself had thickened. I'm not leaving that. I'm going where I'm needed. Mormont thinks. Maester Aemon thinks. The words snagged in his chest. Sam stepped inside, the door scraping shut behind him. They think the South won't listen to the Night's Watch, he finished gently. But they might listen to Eddard Stark's son. Jon's jaw clenched at the name. He had not yet read the words on the scroll. The parchment lay at the bottom of his bag like a weight, heavy and unseen. Some part of him feared that if he pulled it free, the letters would rise off the page like tiny blades and cut him to pieces. He picked up Longclaw instead, running his thumb along the Valyrian steel. The ripples in the metal caught the candlelight, shifting like smoke. I'm his bastard, Jon said. The South won't forget that. The South remembers what is useful, Sam said with unexpected sharpness. You told me that once when I was whining. He fidgeted with his gloves, then blurted, You can make yourself useful, Jon. You always do. Jon slid Longclaw into its scabbard and slung the belt about his hips. The familiar weight settled against him like an old truth. I don't know the first thing about courts and kings, he said. Robb was always the one who'd go to war. I was to wear black and vanish. Sam's eyes shone in the candlelight. Maybe you were meant to go where Robb can't. You've seen what's beyond the wall. You've fought a dead man. You know that the stories are real. Jon remembered ice-cold hands, the creak of frozen flesh bending where no living body could. He remembered black fingers closing around his throat, and the reek of death that wasn't rot but something older, emptier. I have to try, he said, more to himself than to Sam. If I can make Robb listen, if he can force the South to look north. Sam nodded quickly, then hiccuped a sob. You'll need food. I'll have Clyda's pack it in the kitchens and tell him the old bear ordered it. And books. You never know when you might need a book. Jon almost laughed, the sound coming out rough. "There won't be much reading on the King's Road, Sam. There might be if you survive it." Sam stepped closer, fumbling in his cloak. "Here." He pulled out a small leather-bound volume, its edges worn. "This is... Maester Aemon gave it to me when I first came. Stories of the histories of the realms. Who held what, when, and why. You might need to know whose banners you're riding through if you want to keep your head." Jon hesitated, then took it. The leather was warm from Sam's hands. "He'll want this back." "He told me I'd know when to let it go," Sam said. "I think this is when." Ghost brushed against Sam's leg, startling him, then huffed as if impatient with human tears. The direwolf's red gaze was fixed on Jon, unblinking. "I wish I was brave enough to go with you," Sam whispered. "You are brave," Jon said. "Braver than you think. Stay here. The Watch will need men who can read and think when the others come." Sam flinched at the word, but he did not look away. Then go. Before I start screaming and wake the whole castle." Jon stepped past him into the corridor. The stones felt colder outside the small circle of candlelight, as if the wall itself were listening. He turned back once. Sam stood clutching his cloak with both hands, lips pressed tight. "Thank you," Jon said, "for everything." Sam nodded jerkily. "Come back," he managed, "when it's done. If it's ever done." Jon could not promise that. Instead, he reached out and squeezed Sam's shoulder, then whistled for Ghost and strode down the corridor toward the stables, toward the gate, toward the dark world beyond the wall. Dawn came grudgingly, a slow bleeding of gray into the black sky. Jon's horse, a rangy bay taken from the Watch's small stable, snorted clouds of steam as it picked its way through the tangled roots and snow-slick earth of the haunted forest. The trees leaned close, branches clawing at his cloak like skeletal hands. Ghost moved ahead of them, a white shadow flitting between trunks, pausing now and then to sniff at the air. The direwolf's paws left almost no mark in the thin crust of snow, as if he moved between this world and some other colder one. The wall receded behind Jon with every step, an unseen weight lifting from his shoulders and settling again as something else. Guilt, perhaps, or fear. The gate had creaked open in the darkest hour of night at Mormont's command. The few black brothers on duty had been told he rode as a messenger to Mole's town. None had questioned it. "South," he had told the groom saddling his horse, when asked where exactly. "As far as the road will take me." The road would take him to war. He thought of Robb as he rode, of his brother's grin when they'd raced in the yard, of the way he had swung his sword as if it were part of his arm. Robb had been born to banners and battle cries. Jon had been born to the spaces beside him, the bastard's place, the shadow at the noble's side. Yet it was Jon who had seen things in the snow that no lordling from Winterfell ever had. He skirted the worst of the forest, clinging to the faint path that rangers used when ranging south. The cold bit through his furs, but he welcomed it. The bite of it kept his thoughts sharp, driving back the press of memory. The image of his father kneeling, the arc of a great sword, a crowd screaming for blood. He did not want to imagine it. He did anyway. The forest thinned as the morning wore on, the trees shrinking from ancient sentinels to scrubby pines. By midday, he could see hints of open land through the branches, distant hills rising like frozen waves. The world felt larger with every mile, but also emptier, as if he were riding into a void left by Eddard Stark's death. At a shallow stream, he dismounted, letting the horse drink while he cupped cold water in his hands. Ghost padded to the opposite bank, hackles lifting as he stared southward. Jon followed his gaze. Smoke smudged the horizon, not the thin line of a village's hearthfires, but a broad, ugly smear. War. Jon's stomach clenched. He had known, of course, in the way one knows a storm is coming when the air is wrong. Ravens carried tidings. Men muttered in the mess hall about kings and traitors. But to see it, to see the sky stained with someone else's burnt home, was different. "We're late," he told Ghost softly. "They didn't wait for us." Ghost's ears twitched. The direwolf stepped into the stream without hesitation, the water swirling around his pale legs. Jon swung into the saddle and urged the horse on. The cold water splashed his boots. Then they were through, climbing the far bank, moving toward the smear of distant smoke. The land beyond the forest was open and treeless, rolling ground crusted with old snow and patches of frozen mud. Jon found a cart track and followed it, trusting it would lead toward people, toward news, toward Robb. By late afternoon, he found the first corpses. They lay in the ditch beside the road. A man in rough spun with a farmer's hands, a woman with her skirts torn. A boy no older than Bran had been when Jon left Winterfell. The man's throat was cut. The woman's dress was stiff with blood between her legs. The boy's skull had been smashed in so completely his face was unrecognizable. Jon turned his head away while burning his throat. Ghost moved among the bodies, sniffing, then backed off with a low growl. "Lannisters," Jon said. It wasn't a question. He could see the hoofprints in the churned mud, the marks of many horses and iron-shod wheels. Or some lord who wants to please them. The North will not forget this. The words sounded hollow. The dead did not care who remembered them. He dismounted long enough to pull the boy's cloak up over what remained of his face. It was a poor gesture, a thin scrap of dignity against the weight of what had been done here, but it was all he could offer. When he rode on, the smoke on the horizon had thickened, dark and heavy as storm clouds. The village had no name that Jon could see, only a sagging post where a sign might once have hung. The houses were low and timbered, or had been, their roofs now collapsed, beams blackened and jutting like broken ribs. Here and there a stone chimney still stood, smoke coiling from its hollow throat to join the pall overhead. Flies buzzed where the fire's heat had faded. The smell hit Jon before he reached the first house. Burnt wood and burnt meat, the sickly sweet stench of cooked flesh. His horse shied, rolling its eyes. Jon tightened his grip on the reins and forced it forward. Bodies lay scattered in the mud. Some wore rough homespun, some the patched leather of men who had thought a spear and a scrap of metal would save them. They were wrong. A few corpses wore bits of crimson or gilded metal, the remains of some lesser lord's men, perhaps, who had found a wolf where they'd expected sheep. Ghost moved ahead, first Stark against the blackened ground. The direwolf's nose wrinkled, but he did not shrink from the smell. He stepped delicately over an outstretched hand, ears twitching. "Is anyone alive?" Jon called, his voice sounding too loud in the ruined silence. "Is there anyone here?" Only the flies answered him, a low, relentless hum. He dismounted and led the horse by the bridle, boots squelching in mud darkened by more than water. In the center of the village, he found what remained of a sept. The seven-pointed star that had once been carved above the door was cracked and blackened. The doors themselves were gone, leaving only charred hinges and a gaping mouth. Inside, the air was thicker, the stink almost solid. The pews had burned, collapsing into heaps of ash and twisted iron nails. Against the far wall, beneath a scorched mural of the father with broken eyes, 20 or more bodies lay heaped in a grotesque tangle. Women, children, old men. Jon clenched his teeth until his jaw ached. He thought of Bran listening wide-eyed to old Nan's stories of dragons and heroes, of Arya leaping about the yard with a wooden sword, pretending to be some knight from the tales. None of them had ever told the story where small folk died in heaps, nameless and unremembered, because one boy king in the south wanted his crown to weigh more heavily than another's. He backed out of the sept, dragging cold air into his lungs. In the square, something moved. Ghost stood stiff-legged, his hackles high, staring at a collapsed house near the well. Jon followed his gaze. From beneath a fallen beam, a hand scraped feebly at the dirt. He was at the rubble in an instant, dropping the reins, the horse snorting and sidling as if ready to bolt. Jon grabbed the charred wood and heaved. The beam shifted an inch, then another, ash and dust cascading. Ghost darted in, teeth catching another piece of timber, muscles bunching as he pulled. Together, they dragged enough aside to free the figure trapped beneath. It was an old woman, or had been. Her hair was singed away in patches, her face blistered and raw. Her dress clung in blackened tatters, but her eyes were open, milky and shining with pain. "Water," she croaked. Jon dashed to the well, cranking the bucket up with frantic hands. The rope burned his palms. He splashed water into a cracked wooden cup he found half buried in ash and knelt beside her, lifting her head to pour it carefully between her lips. She coughed, choked, swallowed. "Gone," she whispered. "All gone." "Who did this?" Jon asked, though he already knew. "Lions." Her hand spasmed, fingers curling. Red cloaks. Said we harbored wolves. Said we cheered for the king in the north." Her cracked lips twisted into something like a smile. "We did. We did." Jon's throat tightened. "Robb Stark is coming south," he said. "He'll make them pay." Her cloudy eyes searched his face. "You're one of them," she said faintly. "You have his look. Only the eyes different." "I'm Jon Snow," he said. "His brother." "Snow." Her chest hitched. "Winter's coming, then?" "Yes," Jon said softly. "It is." She exhaled a breath that was almost a laugh, then sagged in his arms, her head lolling. For a moment he thought she had merely fainted. Then Ghost whined low in his throat, and Jon felt the weight in his arms become something else. Something the old woman was no longer inside. He laid her gently on the ground, closing her eyes with thumb and forefinger. There was nothing more he could do here. No vengeance he could give these people that would turn back time or unburn flesh. But he could carry this with him. He could show the South what lions did to villages that cheered for wolves. Jon rose, wiped ash from his hands onto his cloak, and whistled for Ghost. The dire wolf came at once, fur grayed by soot. Together, they walked out of the dead village, back to the waiting road and the long miles ahead. Far to the south, beneath the red and blue banners of House Tully, the great hall of Riverrun was full of men and the smell of wet wool and steel. Yet Robb Stark preferred the war tent in the courtyard, where he could hear the rain drumming on canvas and pretend for a moment that the whole world was no larger than the map before him. The parchment was stained with wine and sweat, its rivers and hills obscured by carved wooden markers. Wolves, trout, lions. A small wooden tower marked Riverrun itself. 2 lion pieces clustered near Harrenhal. Another sat like a bloodstain over some nameless village on the map's edge, where word had reached them of a slaughter. "That's the 3rd report of such in as many days," Catelyn Stark said, her voice low and tight. "Lions riding through unfortified lands, burning what they please. They mean to starve us and terrify us. They mean to remind us that they are not beaten," Robb replied. He rested his hands on the table's edge, shoulders hunched, his auburn hair shadowed by the lantern light. He had grown since he left Winterfell. He stood taller than Catelyn remembered, his face leaner, jaw sharper. When he frowned, the line between his brows was almost a mirror of his father's. The great Jon Umber snorted from his place near the tent's entrance, meaty hands on his sword belt. "Let them burn their way across the south," he said. "They can't eat ashes. Every village they raise is one that'll never bend knee to them again. When the king in the north wins this war, those small folk will remember who came to put the fires out. If there is anything left to save," Catelyn said sharply. Robb moved a carved wolf closer to one of the burned villages. His hand hesitated over the map, then he withdrew it. "We can't be everywhere at once," he said. "If we scatter our strength to chase raiders, Tywin will crush us in the field." Catelyn watched him, her heart aching with a mother's fear and a woman's hard-earned understanding of the world's cruelties. He was so young still, and yet men twice his age looked to him before they spoke. "When will the Fry men arrive?" she asked, if only to turn the conversation from charred bodies. "Within a fortnight, they say," Robb replied, though his tone carried no trust. "Lord Walder is sending a quarter of the men he promised, but that's enough to turn a battle if used well." "And what of the Baratheons?" Catelyn asked. "Has the elder brother answered your offer?" Robb's mouth thinned. Stannis Baratheon does not deign to answer any king but himself, it seems. He pushed a lion piece away from Riverrun with the tip of a knife. Renly gathers his roses in the south. Joffrey hides behind his mother's skirts. I had surer friends when I was 10 and playing at war in Winterfell's yard. The tent flap stirred, letting in a gust of rain-laden air and the distant clatter of hooves. A guard poked his head inside, rain dripping from his helm. "Your Grace," he said, "riders at the outer gate. One of them claims to be from the Night's Watch." "The Night's Watch," Catelyn repeated, startled. "What would they want with us?" Robb straightened, the wolf smoothness in his movements betraying his sudden alertness. "Are there more?" he asked the guard. "An envoy? A ranging party?" "Only one black cloak, Lord, your Grace," the man corrected hastily, with a white wolf at his heels. The knife slipped in Robb's fingers, clattering against the table. For a moment he was no king, no war leader, only a boy hearing news he had not dared hope for. "Ghost," he breathed. Catelyn's breath caught. "Jon," she whispered. Then, harder, "A deserter." Robb shot her a sharp look. "Jon is my brother." "He is a sworn brother of the Night's Watch," she said. "If he comes here now out of his vows, he comes as a deserter. You know the penalty for that." "He's my brother," Robb said again, voice low and flint hard. "Bring him to me," he told the guard. "At once." The great Jon grinned, eyes bright. "The bastard pup returns to the pack," he rumbled. "I'd like to see the face of the lion who tries to take his head while I still draw breath." Catelyn said nothing. Her hands tightened around each other until the knuckles whitened. Somewhere in the cacophony of grief and war that had become her life, she had space left for only one prayer: that the gods would not put yet another son's life in her hands to weigh against honor and law. By the time Jon reached Riverrun, the rain had turned the world to mud. It drummed on his hood and plastered his cloak to his shoulders, soaked through the horse's mane and tail, turned the courtyard into a churned mess of footprints and hoofprints. The castle's red sandstone walls loomed ahead, banners of Tully and Stark hanging limp in the wet. Ghost trotted at his stirrup, fur dampened from white to a dirty cream, though the rain never seemed to burden him. The direwolf's presence drew more eyes than Jon's black cloak. Men in wolf-embroidered surcoats paused to stare, some making warding signs, others grinning in sudden recognition. "Look at the size of him," one man muttered. "Must be Lord Robb's wolf's kin." "Or his bastards," another replied. "I heard he had one." The gate guards had challenged Jon at spear point before he'd even crossed the outer bridge. Only when Ghost bared his teeth and Jon named himself. Jon Snow, sworn brother of the Night's Watch, rider from Lord Commander Jeor Mormont. Had they lowered their weapons enough to escort him inside, though they kept a wary distance from the direwolf. Now, as he dismounted in the inner yard, he felt 100 eyes on his back. Some were curious, some hostile. A few, here and there, held a glimmer of recognition. He saw men he'd trained beside at Winterfell, older now, harder. Jory Castle's cousin Tom, if he was not mistaken, with a new scar along his jaw. Hallis Mullen near the stables, his hair more gray than Jon remembered. Each face was a reminder of home, sharpened by the knowledge that Winterfell was half a world and a lifetime away. A stable hand reached for his reins, then flinched when Ghost patted close, lips curling silent over white teeth. "He won't bite," Jon said, though he could not keep his weariness from his voice. "Not unless you do." The boy swallowed and nodded, fingers closing cautiously around the leather. "Ai, leave the wolf," a stern voice said. "He goes where he pleases." Jon turned. Catelyn Stark stood at the base of the keep steps, a small knot of guards around her. Her hair, once auburn bright, seemed darker in the rain, streaked with silver he had not noticed before. Her face was thinner, the skin under her eyes bruised with sleeplessness. She looked at him as one might look at a stranger wearing her dead husband's cloak. "Lady Catelyn," Jon said, throat tight. He wanted to kneel, but his knees felt locked. "Jon Snow," Her eyes flicked to his cloak, to the black wool heavy with water. "You have grown." "So have you," he wanted to say, but the words would have been foolish. War aged some faster than years. Instead he said, "I'm sorry for your loss." Her fingers twitched. "We have all lost," she replied. "Come?" "Robb is waiting for you in the war tent." She turned without waiting to see if he followed. Jon did. Ghost padded at his side, keeping pace as if he belonged there, as if he had always belonged there. As they crossed the yard, men fell silent, watching the bastard of Winterfell trail after the Lady of the North like some strange, pale shadow. Jon kept his gaze ahead, though he could not help glancing once toward the river beyond the walls, swollen with rain. The tumblestone roared past, indifferent to banners and battles. The war tent stood in the inner courtyard, larger than the rest, its entrance flanked by guards in stark gray and umber green. Catelyn paused just outside, hand on the flap. Her eyes went to the sword at Jon's hip. "Whatever you say in there," she said quietly. "Remember, he is not just your brother now, he is a king." Jon's chest tightened. "He's still Robb." "For his sake," she replied. "I pray that is true." She pushed through the flap and held it aside for him. Jon ducked into the warm dimness, Ghost slipping in at his heels like a wisp of smoke. The warmth inside the tent struck Jon like a physical blow. Braziers burned at the corners, filling the space with the tang of coal smoke and damp wool. The war table dominated the center, its scarred surface crowded with carved pieces. Above it hung the direwolf banner of House Stark, its gray silk stirring gently in the draft. Robb stood on the far side of the map, hands braced on the table. When Jon entered, his brother's head snapped up. For a heartbeat, there was no king in the north, no lord of Winterfell, no chain of command or titles. There were only two boys who had shared a bedchamber wall and snowball fights and secret smiles over their father's sternness. "Jon," Robb said. "Robb," Jon managed. His brother had changed. Robb's jaw was sharper, dusted with a beard that had not been there the last time they'd spoken. His shoulders were broader beneath his mail, his posture carrying the weight of men's lives. Yet his eyes were still the same clear blue, stark eyes, though they were harder now, with lines at the corners that had not been etched by laughter. For a moment they simply stared. Then Robb rounded the table in 3 long strides and crushed Jon against him, arms hard, armor cold through wet wool. "You stupid bastard," Robb said into his shoulder, voice rough. "You were meant to be safe on that bloody wall." Jon's throat closed. He returned the embrace just as fiercely, feeling the tension in Robb's back, the suppressed tremor in his breath. "You were meant to be in Winterfell," he said, words muffled, "arguing with Theon and chasing girls in the Godswood." Robb huffed a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. "I see you brought a new monster," he said, looking past Jon to where Ghost stood, tongue lolling faintly, eyes burning. "Another wolf to scare my lords. You've your own." "Aye." Robb's gaze flicked to the tent's corner, where gray wind lay stretched across a heap of furs, tail thumping once as if in acknowledgement. The great gray direwolf rose, sniffed the air, and padded over to meet Ghost nose to nose. The two wolves regarded each other in silence, fur bristling, then relaxed, as if some silent agreement had been reached. Catelyn cleared her throat softly behind Jon. The sound broke something in the air. Robb stepped back, shoulders squaring, the king's mantle settling over him again. "You come from the wall," he said, as if reminding himself, "out of your vows." "I come with Lord Commander Jeor Mormont's leave," Jon replied. He would not name me deserter. He sent me to you, to the north." "To me, why?" Robb's gaze sharpened. "We've little enough help from anyone, brother. If Mormont had 100 men to spare, I'd take them. But one who fought a dead man," Jon said. The tent fell quiet. Even the soft scrape of gray wind's claws on canvas seemed to fade. Robb's eyes darkened. "Tell me," he said. "From the beginning." Jon told him. He spoke of the corpse they had found in the snow, its flesh cold but unrotted, its fingers black as if dipped in some oily ink. He spoke of Arthur's blue eyes, shining in the dark, of Ser Jeremy Ricker's body, torn apart in the Lord Commander's chambers, of fire and cold, of fear and steel. Robb listened without interrupting, hands clenched at his sides. Catelyn's face grew paler with each detail, her knuckles white where they gripped her cloak. The Great Jon, who had come in behind Jon and now stood near the entrance, made no jests. "And the old bear believes this is no lone horror," Robb said when Jon fell silent. "He believes this is what? An army. A gathering," Jon said. "Scouts. The others test our strength, see how far we reach. They are bolder than they were in Old Nan's stories. And the wildlings flee south from more than hunger." Robb paced once, twice, the leather of his boots creaking. "I believe you," he said at last. "I do. But if I tell my lords that dead men walk, half of them will laugh and the rest will say I've been listening to tales in the hall. They've seen the Lannisters burning their villages. They've seen the Freys hedge their bets. They've seen a father's head on a spike." His voice roughened on the last words. "They will not listen to a threat they cannot see." "Then show them," Jon urged. "Send men north. Send food, iron, blacksmiths. Help the Watch build its strength." "And what of the war here?" Catelyn cut in sharply. "Do you propose we leave the Riverlands to burn while we chase ghosts in the snow?" "They are not ghosts," Jon snapped, more sharply than he intended. Ghost's ears flicked at his tone. "They are coming. All of this." He gestured at the map, at the lion pieces clustered like a disease. "All this will mean nothing if the dead march south. Your burned villages will be the least of it." Robb looked between them, jaw working. "We cannot fight two wars at once," he said softly. "Not when we are already outnumbered." "Then end this one quickly," Jon said. "Decide what you want from it. If it is vengeance, take it swift. If it is a crown—" He hesitated. Robb's eyes narrowed. "Say it." "If it is a crown," Jon said, "then you must think like a king of all the realms, not only the north. The south has never seen the others. They don't believe, but they believe in power, in victory, in someone who can beat the lions and make their fields safe again. Win that, and you can turn them north whether they like it or not." Great Jon Umbers's booming laugh broke the tension. "Listen to the bastard pup," he said. "Already planning to conquer the south, he is." Robb did not laugh. His gaze was fixed on Jon, speculative and dark. "You rode from the wall through lands the Lannisters have scorched. What did you see?" "Smoke," Jon said. "Bodies, fear, and men who whispered your name even as they buried their dead." He met his brother's eyes. "They already look to the north for justice. Make sure they find it." The war tent emptied slowly as the hour grew late. Lords withdrew to their pavilions, guards rotated at the entrances, the sounds of a camp at night settling into a low, weary murmur, the clank of distant armor, the crackle of fires, the muted murmur of men who knew sleep might bring no respite from the day's cruelties. In a smaller pavilion just beyond the main tent, Robb had set a table with 3 cups and a flagon of dark river wine. It was a poor thing compared to the feasts of Winterfell, but it was quiet, and for a little while they could pretend the world was narrower than it was. Catelyn held her cup between both hands, not drinking. Robb sipped and winced. Jon merely let the wine sit untouched in front of him, the smell of it mingling with the canvas and damp wool. "You know what the law says," Catelyn began, not unkindly. "Desertion from the Night's Watch is punishable by death. Your father passed more orders like that than any man I know. He never flinched from it." "I remember," Jon said quietly. "I was with him the first time. They made me watch." Robb's fingers tightened around the stem of his cup. "I remember that too." He drew a breath. "But this is not that. The law does not bend for our feelings," Catelyn said. "If you harbor a deserter, you defy more than a petty statute. You scorn the one order meant to stand outside of all this." She gestured weakly toward the world beyond the tent. If word spreads that the king in the north ignores the Watch's vows, how long before men say the wall is just another thing to bargain with? The Lord Commander sent him, Robb said. Jeor Mormont himself. If the Watch's own leader chooses to loose a man from his vows for the good of the realm, perhaps the law is not as rigid as we pretend. Catelyn's mouth thinned. Do you have that in writing? No, Jon said. And Mormont would be a fool to set it down. There are men at the wall who would cut his throat for less. Then all that protects you is your brother's word, Catelyn said. Your brother, who is in the middle of a war he did not start and cannot easily end. Jon met her gaze. I did not come to make his war harder, he said. But if the Watch falls, Lady Catelyn, this war will be the least of what kills us. Ask Maester Luwin what the long night was like. Her eyes flickered at the mention of Winterfell's Maester, but she did not look away. I have asked, she said. He says there are more tales than truths left from that time. You speak as if you know. I've seen enough to fear the rest, Jon replied. Robb leaned forward, elbows on his knees. We can spend the night arguing what the law demands, he said. But we don't have the luxury. In the morning I must send ravens. To the Karstarks, to the Freys, to whoever still remembers they promised us swords. He looked to Jon. If I name you my counselor, there will be outrage. Name him what he is, Catelyn said quickly. A bastard of your house, come to beg aid for the Watch. Then send him back with food and iron if you must. But do not set him above men who have bled for you. Jon's cheeks heated, though he had asked for no titles. I didn't come seeking rank, he said. I came because someone must make you look north while your eyes are fixed south. Robb smiled faintly. You sound like Maester Luwin when he caught us trying to snare rabbits in the gods, would instead of reading. That's because someone has to keep you from making a fool of yourself, Jon said, before he could stop himself. For a heartbeat, the three of them sat in silence. Then a laugh broke from Robb's chest, sudden and hoarse, as if unused. Catelyn's lips twitched despite herself. 7 hells, I missed you, Robb said. I'm surrounded by men 20 years my elder who think I was born knowing what to do. Not one of them has the courage to say I'm being an idiot to my face. You are a king, Catelyn said, though her voice was softer now. They fear disrespect. They fear losing their heads, Robb said. I fear losing my soul. He looked at Jon, the laughter draining, leaving something rawer behind. I can't do this alone. You're not alone, Jon said. You have the North at your back. The North expects victories, Robb said. They expect the Lannisters broken, the Freys chastened, the Tullys saved, the Greyjoys cowed, the Baratheons placated. They expect me to be father and Brandon both, and something more besides. He shook his head. If the dead are walking in the snow as you say, then this war is madness. But if we do nothing, we leave our people to lion claws and iron. Tell me how to choose between that. Jon stared into his cup, watching the wine swirl. You don't, he said at last. You find a way to make one serve the other. Catelyn's brows rose. What does that mean? It means, Jon said slowly, feeling his way as he spoke, that if you must fight this war, fight it in a way that leaves you stronger before winter falls in earnest. Don't bleed yourself to death over every burned village. Strike where it breaks their spine. Take what they cannot afford to lose. And what is that? Robb asked. Jon looked up, meeting his brother's eyes. King's Landing, he said. The throne itself. The rain had eased by midnight, dwindling to a fine mist that beaded on cloak and hair, turning the world to shadow and sheen. From the battlements of Riverrun, the river was a black ribbon, its surface broken by faint ripples where currents met. Lanterns burned at intervals along the walls, their light throwing small islands of gold into the dark. Jon stood with his hands on the damp stone, Ghost at his side. The direwolf's fur, now mostly dry, still smelled faintly of smoke and road dust beneath the rain-clean tang. Below, in the courtyard, the campfires were dying down to embers. Men slept where they could, wrapped in cloaks, steel close at hand. Robb joined him without a word, gray wind padding at his heel. For a time they stood in silence, the four of them, a pair of men and a pair of wolves, facing the same darkness. "You always liked the walls best," Robb said quietly. "When we were boys." "It was quiet up here," Jon said. "No one staring. No one asking why I was sitting at the main table." "You should have been," Robb said. "You know I wanted that." Jon blew out a breath that might have been a laugh. "Wanting and having aren't the same." "Don't I know it?" Robb murmured. A breeze lifted their cloaks, carrying with it faint sounds from the sleeping camp, the cough of a man, the distant clank of a chain, the soft, eerie note of some night bird. Jon looked south, though there was nothing to see but darkness and the hint of land rolling away. "You meant it," Robb said after a while. "About King's Landing." You think I should take it?" "I think," Jon said slowly, "that as long as Joffrey sits the Iron Throne, with Cersei and Tywin and whatever monsters they call to their side, there will be no lasting peace for the North. You march home, they'll follow. They'll bleed you in the neck and under your own walls, and call it justice for their murdered king. He was never—" Robb began hotly, then stopped. "It doesn't matter. The South believes what suits them." "Then change what suits them," Jon said. "If you take King's Landing, if you break their armies and put their lions' heads on spikes, suddenly the story is different. Suddenly they're telling each other about the king in the north who came south and took a crown of his own. Or about the boy who broke the lions and handed the throne to a better king. Either way, they're listening. And when you say, 'Look north,' they might do it." Robb's jaw tightened. "You speak as if it were easy," he said. "March to the city, break the walls, topple a king." "It won't be," Jon said. "It'll cost blood. Maybe ours. Maybe yours." His throat tightened. "But if you bury men, bury them for something that matters." "The North's freedom doesn't matter?" Robb asked, voice rough. "It does," Jon said. "But it's not enough. Not now. You said we can't fight two wars. So make them one. Take the throne in the same stroke that prepares the realm for the dead. Use the South's fear of lions to make them hold a shield against something worse." Robb bowed his head, rain beating on his hair. "Stannis Baratheon will not like that plan." "Then make terms," Jon said. "Or break him after the lions fall." "I don't know. I've never cared for crowns. You know that." "I used to think about it," Robb admitted. "When we were boys. Who'd make the better king, me or Bran? Felt like a game then. Father would catch us talking and tell us not to be fools." He smiled faintly. "He never said what he thought. He wouldn't." Jon looked down at Ghost, whose red eyes gleamed in the lamplight. "I used to dream of taking the black and being someone else. Someone without a name that made mothers look away from their children. I thought if I gave everything to the Watch, I could stop wanting things I couldn't have." "And now?" Robb asked. Jon turned to look at him. "Now I want you to live," he said simply. "I want there to be something worth saving when the others come. If that means throwing you at the gates of King's Landing, I'll do it. If it means holding you back while someone else bleeds, I'll do that too. But I won't stand by while you fight a half-war and call it victory." Robb's eyes searched his face. There was something old in them now, something that had been growing ever since the ravens came with Ned Stark's fate. "You speak as if you'll be at my side," he said. "Not riding back to your wall with a few wagons of grain." "I will go back," Jon said. The words surprised him as he said them, but once spoken they felt true. "When there's a plan. When there's something to bring the old bear besides tales of lions and kings. When you're in a place to send men north, not just food." "And until then?" "Until then," Jon said, "I fight where I can, march where you march, learn what I must, so that when I stand before lords south of the neck and tell them the dead walk, they've already learned not to laugh at me." Robb's mouth quirked. "You intend to use my war as practice." "I intend to use it as proof," Jon replied. Gray wind nudged Robb's hand, rumbling deep in his chest. Ghost mirrored the motion beside Jon, as if the two direwolves shared some thought their humans could not. "When we were boys," Robb said quietly, "we used to swear we'd never be parted. Remember? You, me, Theon, Bran trailing after us, Rickon howling like a pup. I remember. We thought the worst that could happen was Father catching us sneaking out of the hall at night. He'd make us clean the stables," Jon said, "or sit through some dry old speech about duty." Robb's smile was thin. "Funny thing, I'd give a kingdom for one more of those now." Silence stretched between them, filled with the soft rasp of wolf's breath and the far-off rush of the river. "At least we're together again," Robb said. "For now, whatever comes next, we face it side by side." Jon looked south, toward a darkness that hid kings and lions and a city of 1,000,000 souls. Then he turned north, an unseen wall of ice held back an older darkness still. "Side by side," he agreed. The small pavilion Robb had granted him was scarcely larger than his cell at Castle Black. A narrow camp bed, a stool, a battered chest that had belonged to some dead officer before the war swallowed him. The canvas walls breathed in and out with each gust of wind, sighing softly. Ghost lay stretched across the foot of the bed, a warm, heavy weight anchoring Jon to the here and now. Outside, the camp had settled into that fitful silence that never truly was. A murmur of distant voices, the occasional neigh of a restless horse, the clank of a blade as some guard shifted his stance. The candle on the stool burned low, its wax pooling around the base. Jon held the scroll Jeor Mormont had thrust into his hand against the light, the familiar spidery script of Maester Aemon crawling across the page. He had not read it until now. "Lord Commander," it began, though those words were a formality. The meat of the message lay beneath the polite bows and courtesies. Reports of disappearances at smaller keeps along the wall. Shadows moving where no shadows should, even at noon. Wildlings whispering of white walkers in the woods, of camps found emptied, tents standing, fires still smoking, no bodies left behind. He read of old stories Aemon had dug from the dust, accounts of the long night so tattered with age their authors' names were lost. Men falling asleep and never waking. Villages taken by a cold so complete fires would not catch. Refuges turning upon their own with eyes as pale as ice. The Maester's hand, steady even at his advanced age, grew more cramped toward the end, as if the quill itself had begun to tremble. "We are old, my friend," he wrote, "old and worn and few. Once the dragons guarded the realms of men as well. Now we have only ravens and ragged boys and a wall of ice that forgets the faces of those who man it. If the south tears itself apart before winter's teeth are fully bared, we may all be buried in the same frozen grave." He asked for food, for men, for something more elusive, attention. Jon laid the scroll down, pressing the heel of his hand against his eyes. The candle flame wavered, a small, stubborn light in the canvas dark. He had come so far already, through forests and burned villages and the uncertain welcome of a brother turned king. He had spoken of dead men to men who dealt in the living and their politics. Somewhere beyond these thin walls, Robb Stark was making choices that could change the shape of the realm. Jon was only one man, one bastard to most, one sworn brother in black who had stepped sideways out of his proper place. Yet he could feel something gathering, like the pressure of a storm before it broke. The war in the south, the stirrings in the north, they were not separate. They were two ends of the same fraying rope. Ghost shifted in his sleep, paws twitching as if chasing some dream prey. Jon reached down and buried his fingers in the direwolf's fur. It was coarser than it looked, thick enough to keep out the cold. Ghost rumbled faintly and settled. "You'll see it too, won't you?" Jon murmured. "Whatever comes, you'll be there." The direwolf did not answer, but the steady rise and fall of his sides was answer enough. Jon thought of Winterfell's godswood, of the face carved in the heart tree's trunk. He had prayed there once, the night before he'd left for the wall. He had asked for a place, for purpose, for some proof that he was more than a mistake. The gods had not answered in words. They had given him cold and darkness and oaths and dead men with blue eyes. Now they had given him this, mud and fire and a brother with a crown in a land tearing itself apart. "Let me do this right," he whispered, though he did not know to whom. "Let me make him listen. Let me make them all listen." Outside, the wind sighed along the canvas. Somewhere in the camp, a man laughed in his sleep or sobbed. The river whispered against its banks, carrying news downstream in a tongue no one could hear. Jon blew out the candle. Darkness closed in, thick and complete. For a moment he lay awake, eyes open to nothing, listening to Ghost's breath, to the world breathing around him. Tomorrow ravens would fly. Plans would be laid to move men and steal along roads choked with war. Somewhere in those lines on a map would be the path to King's Landing, though no one yet named it as such. And beyond all of it, unseen, the dead waited in the snow. Jon let his eyes drift shut at last, his hand never leaving Ghost's fur. In his dreams, the Wall and the Red Keep both loomed before him, two great strongholds facing the same long, dark night. By morning the rain had settled into a steady whisper on the tents, a gray curtain that blurred the world beyond the camp. Inside the war pavilion, the air was thick with the smell of damp wool, leather, and men who had slept in armor. Candles burned low along the table's edge, their light turning the inked rivers and hills of the map into shifting shapes. Robb stood at the head of the table, his hair still damp, a clean shirt under his mail. Catelyn sat to his right on a low stool, hands folded in her lap, her expression grave. To his left loomed the great Jon, broad as an ox, his beard full of crumbs from the heel of bread he had just devoured. Around them stood Rickard Karstark, dour and stiff, Roose Bolton, pale eyes hooded, the Blackfish Brynden Tully, hard and sharp as the steel at his hip, and a dozen other northern and river lords, murmuring as they waited. Jon stood a little back from the table, between Great Jon and the Blackfish, close enough to see the map clearly, far enough that no one could accuse him of presuming. Ghost lay just behind his boots, white head on his paws, red eyes half-lidded but alert. Robb rapped his knuckles against the table. The mutters died. "We have heard from the Wall," he began. "From Lord Commander Jeor Mormont and Maester Aemon. You have heard some of what my brother saw there." His gaze flicked briefly to Jon, then back to the lords. Dead men walking, wildlings fleeing something worse, the others stirring in the far north. Great Jon snorted. "Old tales to frighten children. You saw the dead direwolves on our road south," Robb said evenly. "You saw the marks burned into the trees around their bodies. Did you think lions climbed that high to carve such things?" A few men shifted uncomfortably. Roose Bolton's pale eyes flickered, then settled again. "The threat from the far north is real," Robb continued, "but so is the one we face here. Tywin Lannister marches with near 30,000 men. His whelps Joffrey and Cersei hold King's Landing, propped up by the gold of Casterly Rock. They burn villages that cheer our banners. They send heads of our kin to us in boxes." His jaw tightened. "We cannot turn our backs on that and march home." "Then what do you propose, Your Grace?" Rickard Karstark asked. His voice was harsh from too many nights spent shouting for vengeance. "We hear of ghosts and snows and dead men in the dark. But here, now, lions tear at our throats. Which war do you ask us to fight?" "The same one," Jon heard himself say, before caution could still his tongue. Heads turned toward him. Jon felt the weight of a dozen stares, measuring, wary, some openly hostile. Catelyn's lips thinned. Robb nodded once, granting him leave to speak. "Go on." Jon stepped closer to the table. The map's lines swam a little under his gaze, but he forced his eyes to focus. "The South does not believe in the others," he said. "Most of you barely believe, and you have seen more than they have. They do believe in swords, in crowns, in someone strong enough to beat the lions. We have beaten them," Great Jon rumbled. "Twice on the Green Fork, once at the Whispering Wood, again at Oxcross. And still Tywin marches," Jon said. "Still Joffrey sits the Iron Throne." You've bloodied the lion's paw. You have not broken its neck. The great Jon's brows drew down, but his eyes gleamed with a warrior's savage curiosity. And how would you have us break it, bastard boy? Jon rested his fingers lightly on the map's edge, careful not to disturb any peace. You cannot chase raiders forever. Every village they burn bleeds you twice, once in outrage, once when you drag men off the main host to avenge it. You need to strike where they cannot afford to lose. Casterly Rock, someone muttered. The rock is stone and gold, Jon said. Hard to take, easy to rebuild. Men will praise you for it for a season, then go back to counting their coins and cursing winter. He touched the carved crowned lion sitting over King's Landing. This is what they remember. This and the hand that placed the crown. The Blackfish studied him, lips pursed. You speak of taking the city. I speak of making every man south of the neck feel the truth of 3 words, Jon replied. The North remembers. They will not remember if we slink home with our dead and call it freedom. They will remember if we take the throne that killed Ned Stark and make its owners kneel. Ricard Karstark scowled. You'd see the boy wear a southern crown as well as a northern one? I'd see the boy have something more than ashes to offer the realm when winter falls, Jon said. Roose Bolton's pale lips curved faintly. And the Baratheons? He asked softly. Stannis has the better claim. Renly, some might say, has the better smile. Joffrey has the chair, if not the right. Where does your bastard's plan place them all? We have sent to Stannis already, Robb said, offering terms, recognition, not bending the knee but an understanding. He has not answered, yet. He looked at Jon. You think we should press him? A king without an army is a man with a crown-shaped noose, Jon said. Stannis will need you as much as you need him if he means to take King's Landing. You can make use of that. Make him your hammer against the walls while you strike at Tywin's host in the field. And if he refuses? Catelyn asked. If he declares you a usurper as false as Joffrey and marches against you once your strength is spent? Then better to know it early, Jon said. Better an open enemy than a false ally who appears at your back at the wrong moment. Murmurs swelled, bending back and forth like reeds in a current. Some lords nodded, eyes narrowed in thought. Others spat quietly, offended at the idea of trusting any Baratheon who had not lifted a finger when Ned Stark's head fell. The great Jon thumped his fist on the table. I say the bastard has the right of it, he boomed. We came south to break the lions and make tea. Hem fear the north. What better way than to tear their cub off the throne and piss on his crown? We can still go home after. And leave the throne to whom? The Blackfish asked. A Baratheon who doesn't know the Riverlands from the Reach? We cannot chop off Joffrey's head and walk away whistling. There'll be a reckoning. Then shape it so it serves you, Jon said. Crown Robb king in the north and the Trident. Let Stannis have his throne, if he'll agree to terms that keep his hands from your lands when the dead start walking down from the wall. Or if he will not, take both crowns and make the realm hear one voice when the time comes to look north. The choice is yours, but choose something more than raiding and retreating. All eyes went to Robb. The weight of them bowed his shoulders for an instant. Then he straightened, the king settling into his bones like a second spine. We will send another raven to Stannis, he said. Stronger terms, clearer promises. I mean to speak to him as one king to another, not a beggar to a lord. In the meantime, we do not sit idle. Tywin Lannister moves, and we must decide how to counter him. Uncle, what of the scouts? The Blackfish drew his attention back to the map, and the council's focus shifted. Questions of supply, of bridges and fords, of which lords could be trusted not to sell word of their movements to Casterly Rock. Jon listened, silent now, but he felt the air had changed. His words had gone into them like a stone into a pond, ripples spreading in ways no one could yet see. Ghost, at his feet, lifted his head and huffed softly, as if he, too, scented a change. The woods south of Riverrun were a different thing from the haunted forest beyond the wall. The trees here were younger, closer together, the underbrush thick with brambles. The ground was softer, the mud rich and dark rather than frozen and iron hard. But trees were trees, and the rules of moving unseen beneath their boughs did not change with latitude. "Step where I step," Jon murmured to the men behind him. "Watch your feet." A snapped twig might as well be a shouted greeting. The half-dozen riders he led were not rangers, but they were northerners used to hunting in deep woods, to snow and silence. They had names Jon had heard in Winterfell's sheaves of bannermen: Tallheart, Glover, Castle. He knew some of their faces from those days of boyhood when he had been the Lord's bastard, not the Wall's crow. Now they watched him with a mix of curiosity and grudging respect. The bastard of Winterfell had spoken bold words in the war tent. Now he walked ahead of them, his black cloak dark as wet bark, moving with a lightness they did not expect from a man in mail. Ghost padded before them, white fur muted to pale gray in the early fog. The direwolf's nose worked ceaselessly, tasting the air, his ears pricked. When he paused, Jon paused. When his hackles lifted, Jon raised a hand, and the men behind him froze. They had ridden out at Robb's command to sweep the approaches from the east, to see if any Lannister outriders probed the Riverlands in search of a weak flank. Jon had suggested the small party, light and quiet, instead of a showy host that would only scare off the foxes while missing the wolves. The men moved through the trees like a ripple of shadow. A jay screeched once and fell silent. Somewhere far off, water chuckled over stones. After an hour, Ghost stopped so suddenly Jon nearly walked into him. The direwolf's head swung to the right, nose lifting. He rumbled low in his throat. Jon dropped to a crouch and put his hand to the wolf's neck. "Horses?" he whispered. Ghost huffed. Jon had learned to read the wolf's moods enough to know it meant yes, and more. Men, fire, the sharp stink of lion piss. He motioned the others closer. "There's a camp ahead," he said, keeping his voice barely above breath. "Horses. Lannisters, most like." "How many?" asked Martin Tallheart, a lean man with a scar along his jaw. Jon shook his head. "Ghost smells them. I can't count by scent. Enough to matter, not enough to call an army. We can ride back, bring a force to crush them." One of the younger men murmured, fingers itching toward his sword hilt. "And by the time we return, they'll be gone," Jon said. "Or they'll have sent word to Tywin that wolves hunt near Riverrun. No, we see first, then we decide." He sent them back 3 paces, then slipped forward alone, Ghost at his side. The trees thinned, and he dropped onto his belly, crawling the last few yards until he could peer through a screen of ferns. In a shallow hollow, half hidden by brush, a cluster of tents huddled around a smoking fire pit. Perhaps 24 men lounged there, some in half armor, some in padded jerkins of Lannister red and gold. A corral of horses stamped and blew nearby. One man sharpened a sword, the rasp of metal faint from this distance. Another sat on a log, dicing with a companion, laughing at some crude jest. But it was the banner that chilled Jon's blood. Not the crowned lion of the royal house, but a variation. The same beast, but rendered in black on red, claws bright as blood. "Ser Gregor's men," Jon breathed. The mountain's reputation had reached even the wall. Jon thought of the burned village he had ridden through days before. The smashed boy's skull, the old woman whispering of red cloaks. His fingers dug into the damp earth. Ghost's lips peeled back from his teeth in a soundless snarl. He crawled back to the waiting northerners. 24 at least, he said. Maybe more. Horse lines suggest they move quick. Banner marks them for the mountain. One man spat in the leaves. Butchers. Jon nodded. They'll ride again soon. Burn, kill, vanish. We can't let that happen. We're 7, Tallheart said. They're 20 or more. More men mean more noise, Jon said. We have Ghost. They looked at the dire wolf, and he could see their doubts waver. Ghost stood taller than any hound, his shoulders level with a man's hip, his jaws wide enough to close around a horse's throat. We strike at night, Jon said. Let them drink and grow lazy. Ghost will sow fear. You, he gestured to Tallheart and another, take the horse lines. Cut any who reach a saddle. The rest of you slit throats in their sleep. No shouts, no heroics. If a man wakes screaming, kill him before he finishes. What if there are more than we counted? Someone asked. Then we run, Jon said. We're not here to die gloriously. We're here to stop them from riding down another village. One dead warband is enough to send a message. He saw it then, the way they straightened, the way their eyes sharpened. They were proud men, but they were not blind to sense. This was a plan they understood, quiet, sharp, the northern way. Spread out, Jon said. Find your paths in. Mark your steps. When the moon is there, he pointed at a notch in the eastern horizon. We move. As the men melted back into the trees, Ghost pressed against Jon's leg for a moment, then slipped away, circling, testing the bounds of the lion camp like a ghost of vengeance. Jon watched him go, feeling the old thrill he had known in the haunted forest, a fear that sharpened rather than dulled. Out here, away from maps and titles, he knew what he was. A watcher in the woods, a sword in the darkness, the shield that guards the realms of men, even when those men wore no black. The moon climbed, pale and thin behind a veil of high clouds. The mist that had lain along the forest floor all day thickened, curling around trunks and roots, muffling sound. In the hollow where the Lannister camp lay, the fire had burned low, coals pulsing like a dying heart. Most of the men lay where they had dropped, bedrolls kicked aside, boots half pulled off. A handful still sat propped against logs or saddles, heads lolling as sleep crept up on them. The air was heavy with sweat, smoke, and the sour tang of cheap wine. On the hill above, Jon waited, listening. An owl hooted once, then again. That would be Glover, in the trees to the west, signaling ready. A soft whistle answered from the south, Tall Heart at the horse lines. From the east, where the ground sloped down into a thicket, there was only silence. Good. Castle had always been the quietest of the Winterfell men. If anyone could slip in unseen, it would be him. Ghost materialized at Jon's side like a piece of the mist taking shape. His fur caught what little light the moon offered, a faint halo around a predator's lean body. His eyes were coins of red glass. Now, Jon whispered. He rose from his crouch and moved down the slope, weight on the balls of his feet, cloak held close to keep it from brushing against branches. Ghost slipped ahead, a pale streak between the trees, silent as breath. At the edge of the hollow, Jon dropped to a crawl again, feeling the damp seep through his knees and palms. He could hear the snores now, the occasional muttered curse as a man shifted in his sleep. Somewhere a horse whickered softly, calming almost at once as Tall Heart's low voice murmured to it from the shadows. Ghost reached the nearest sleeping form and lowered his head. For a heartbeat, Jon thought the direwolf would tear out the man's throat and wake the camp in a frenzy of blood. Instead, Ghost inhaled deeply, as if marking a scent, then turned away, padding deeper among the bedrolls. The first scream was small, a strangled, torn-off cry. Jon saw, between two bodies, the flash of white as Ghost dragged a man into the dark, jaws locked around his face. A boot kicked once, twice, then went limp. For a moment there was only the crackle of coals and the soft, wet sounds of Ghost's work. Then a half-drunk guard near the fire blinked, squinting into the dark. "Ralph?" He slurred. "You pissin' in the bushes again, you sheep bugger?" He pushed himself upright, swaying. His hand fumbled for the spear lying at his side. Jon rose from the ground behind him and drove his dagger into the man's kidney, hard and precise. The guard stiffened, mouth opening in a gasp that never became a shout. Jon clamped a hand over it anyway, feeling hot breath against his palm, then the slackness as life left the body. He eased the man down to the ground, wiping his blade on the dead man's sleeve. All around the camp, shadows moved. A man on the far side of the fire lifted his head just in time to see a figure loom over him. Glover, dagger flashing once, twice. Another rolled over and stared up at Castle's silhouette, eyes widening, hands half raising, then falling as the knife found his throat. One woke quicker than the rest. A young rider, perhaps no older than Jon, jerked to his feet with a curse, hand going to his sword. His eyes met Jon's across the coals. For a heartbeat, they simply stared. Then the boy drew steel, screaming, "Ambush!" He got no further. Ghost hit him from the side like a falling tree, massive paws slamming into his chest. They went down together. Teeth flashed, and the scream cut off in a gargle. The shout had been enough. Men surged up from their bedrolls, hands reaching for weapons, voices rising in anger and fear. One stumbled straight into Tallheart's blade. Another lunged at Jon, sword half out of its scabbard. Jon twisted, the blade whispering past his ribs, and slammed his dagger into the man's throat. Hot blood sprayed his cheek. "Keep them from the horses," Jon shouted. "Cut them down." Shapes clashed in the smoke-shrouded dark. A spear thrust at Ghost. The dire wolf flowed aside, jaws closing on the wielder's wrist, ripping it open to the bone. Glover clubbed one man to the ground with the hilt of his sword, then finished him with a boot on the neck and steel between the ribs. A Lannister broke free, sprinting toward the picket line. Tallheart met him, his sword taking the man at the knee. The rider went down shrieking. Tallheart's second blow silenced him. It was ugly, fast work. No lines, no formations, just men trying to kill and not be killed in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Jon moved through it as he had beyond the wall, where a moment's hesitation meant death. He ducked a flailing sword, drove his dagger up under an arm where mail gaped, turned and slammed his shoulder into another man's chest, sending him stumbling toward Ghost's waiting jaws. Then, as quickly as it had erupted, the chaos ebbed. The last Lannister went to his knees, gurgling. Glover's hand knotted in his hair. The big man slit his throat without ceremony and let the body fall. Panting, Jon turned in a slow circle, dagger still ready. Men lay scattered across the hollow, most in crimson, a few in gray. The Northerners' breaths came harsh and ragged in the mist. Ghost padded among the dead, muzzle dark with blood, tongue lolling. "Tallheart," Jon called softly. "Castle, Glover." "I..." came the answers, hoarse but steady. "Alive," Tallheart added. "Hurt, but alive." "Check our men," Jon said. "Bind wounds. Take what we can use, food, weapons, armor. Then drag these bastards into a pile and burn them. Let the next lion outrider smell what waits for him." Glover grinned fiercely. "I will leave them a pretty bonfire." As they set to work, Jon stood at the edge of the camp, watching the first hint of dawn gray the eastern sky. Each time he shut his eyes, he saw the burned village, the pile of Gregor's men burning in the dawn. "You know where he'll push," he said. "Toward the fords, toward any place he can threaten Riverrun and draw you out. Use that. Let him think you are more predictable than you are." Robb's eyes glinted. "You and Uncle can work out the details," he said. "You're both too fond of traps for my peace of mind. Tell me when you've built one that won't snap on our own feet." Ghost brushed against his leg, pressing close. Jon laid his hand on the direwolf's bloody head, fingers curling into the fur. "One step," he murmured. "Just one." Harrenhal's great hall was a cavern of blackened stone, its high arches melted and twisted by dragonfire centuries ago. The ghosts of that heat lingered in the walls, or so men said. Sometimes, in the dead of night, one could feel warmth beneath one's hand where no fire burned. Lord Tywin Lannister did not believe in ghosts. He believed in steel, in gold, and in the stupidity of other men. He sat at the head of a long table, the ruin's vastness swallowed partly by the banners his men had hung. Red and gold lions snarling down from scorched stone. A map lay before him, weighted with daggers. To one side, a small stack of parchment waited, each sealed with different sigils. A raven's message lay open in his hand, the ink still tacky. The wax seal that had bound it bore the impression of a lesser commander who rode under Gregor Clegane's brutal shadow. Tywin read the terse lines again, then dropped the parchment beside his wine cup. "They are late," he said. Ser Tywin Lannister, standing a respectful distance to his right, cleared his throat. Riders can be delayed, brother. Roads wash out. Villages resist. Villages burn, Tywin said. My men do not vanish. He flicked a finger toward the parchment. This spoke of Ser Gregor's Outriders moving to harry the lands near Riverrun. They should have sent word back by now. His pale gaze moved over the assembled men. Kevan, the ugly, wary Vargo Hoat of the brave companions, a few river lords who had bent the knee when Harrenhal's gates opened to lions. Has anyone heard from them? Silence. Men shifted, but no one answered. Tywin's jaw tightened. Then I must assume one of two things, he said. Either my men have forgotten how to hold a pen, or someone has taken their hands from them. Vargo Hoat lisped around the gap in his teeth. Perhaps they found a village full of wine and women, my lord. I have theen your men forget many things for less. Tywin regarded him with cold distaste. Ser Gregor's men are beasts, he said. But they are my beasts. I do not like losing track of my hounds, especially not so close to the Stark pup's den. He picked up a carved wolf from the edge of the map and set it down near Riverrun. Reports put Robb Stark still in the Riverlands, he said. He moves more cleverly than his father did. Strikes where he's not expected, melts away when pressed. He has wolves and men who think themselves wolves. If he has somehow grown himself a scout's brain to go with his soldier's heart. Kevan frowned. What could the boy know that we do not? Tywin tapped the parchment. There is mention in some of the more panicked reports of a white beast, larger than any hound. Red eyes. Men spooked at night. Villages howling that the Starks have sent demons south. Kevan's brow eased. A dire wolf, the same the North speaks of. The Stark heir has won. It said the Snow bastard had won as well, before he took the Black. Had? Tywin repeated softly. Has, perhaps. Ravens from King's Landing say the Night's Watch sent a rider south. Black cloak, white wolf. He let the carved wolf spin once under his finger. If the bastard has joined his brother, the boy king of the Snows has grown himself eyes sharper than most lords. Vargo Hoat laughed. An unpleasant, bubbling sound. A bastard and a boy. You give them too much credit. A few burned villages have made you cautious, my lord. A few burned villages have made others foolish, Tywin replied. They think this war is about hurt feelings and who sits in which chair. They forget that the North breeds hard men, and that bastards learn to bite twice as sharp to prove they belong. He rose, the motion smooth despite his years. The room seemed to sense it. Conversations died, backs straightened. Send word to the mountain, he said. He is to tighten his leashes. Fewer outriders, more discipline. He will not like it. He will obey. I will not have my men taken one by one in the dark like sheep. Kevan inclined his head. As you command. And send riders of our own, Tywin added. Quiet, quick men with orders to watch for a white wolf. If they see it, they are not to engage. They are to follow. The wolf will lead us to the den. He let the wolf piece lie for a moment, then moved a lion southward, closer to a cluster of carved towers that marked the fords and bridges of the Trident. Robb Stark thinks he has a free hand in the Riverlands, Tywin said. Thinks I will sit here in Harrenhal and wait for him to come howling. We will remind him that lions hunt as well as wolves. We push a strong force toward the fords. Enough to threaten Riverrun, not so many that he is afraid to bite. His eyes gleamed coldly. When he does, we close the jaws. Kevan bit his lip. You mean to feign weakness? I mean to use his nature, Tywin said. He is his father's son. Eddard Stark never met an injustice he did not wish to set right with his own sword. Burn a few more villages and the boy will come running. But this time we will be ready. He lowered himself back into his chair. The map spread before him like a game board. Far to the south, another lion piece sat over King's Landing, surrounded by smaller tokens of ships and towers. Tywin spared it a glance, then dismissed it. The capital could watch to its own walls for the moment. His work was here where wolves ran and bastard sons of the north learned to play at war. Far to the southeast, where the narrow sea clawed at black rocks, Dragonstone rose out of the waves like a great stone beast. Its towers and walls were shaped like wings and tails and claws, carved long ago by dragon lords who had loved the creatures enough to make a castle in their image. On one of its wind-swept battlements, Stannis Baratheon stood like a piece of the stone itself, jaw clenched, cloak snapping in the salt-laden wind. His hair was thinning, his face gaunt, but his eyes burned with the steady, unforgiving flame of a man who had built his life on grudges and duty. A raven perched on his arm, iron claws digging through the thick glove he wore. Its eyes were like black beads, its feathers glossy. A scroll was tied to its leg, the seal already broken. "You have read it," Melisandre said, standing just behind him. Her red robes snapped in the wind. The ruby at her throat smoldered. Stannis did not look at her. He stared eastward, where the dawn bled along the horizon like a wound. "I have. And?" she asked. He tore the scroll free and held it out. The parchment flapped in the wind, its ink bold and dark. "Robb Stark, styling himself king in the north and Trident," Stannis said. "He offers me his respect and acknowledgement of lawful claim." The words tasted sour. "He will not bend the knee. He will, however, march against the Lannisters, and suggests that together we might take King's Landing and divide the spoils." Melisandre's lips curved faintly. "Does he now?" "He speaks of the boy on the throne as a false king," Stannis went on. "Says Joffrey is no true son of Robert. Says the same of Tommen and Myrcella." His eyes narrowed. "He knows. Either someone has told him, or he has eyes in his head and can count the days between royal lies." "Truth is a flame," Melisandre said. "Some men shield their eyes when they see it. Some throw oil upon it." Stannis crumpled the scroll in his fist, then smoothed it again. "He offers terms," he said. "He will recognize me as king in name if I recognize him as sovereign in the north and over what riverlands he holds. He suggests, his mouth twisted, that we are both needed, that the realm must see strength to turn its gaze from the Lannisters and to greater dangers to the north." "You do not like that," Melisandre observed. "I do not like needing anyone," Stannis snapped. "Least of all some green boy with a wolf sigil and a dead father." "And yet," Melisandre said softly, "you do need him." The wind whipped Stannis's hair across his forehead. He ignored it. "I have men," he said. "Fewer than I once did, but enough. I have ships. I have Dragonstone. I have you." The last word came grudgingly. "You have the Lord of Light," Melisandre corrected. "But even Lawler uses earthly tools. Look." She moved closer, raising her hand. The ruby at her throat flared, casting a reddish glow over the raven's glossy feathers, over the ink on the page. For an instant, the letters seemed to shift and writhe, as if alive. "In the east, the cold gathers," she murmured, eyes half-lidded. "I have seen it in the flames. Shadows on snow, a wall of ice cracking, dead things with blue eyes. This boy speaks of greater dangers to the north? He knows more than most in this soft, blind land." Stannis grimaced. "I have heard tales. My maesters prattle of the long night. Aemon at the wall sends ravens, saying." "Old tales," Melisandre cut in. "New truth. The war for the dawn comes, whether these lords accept it or not. You may be Azor Ahai reborn, my king, but even the chosen needs an army." "You would have me take the wolf's hand," Stannis said. "I would have you use him," Melisandre said frankly. "Let him bleed your enemies in the riverlands. Let his wolves harry the lion for you. When the time comes to strike at King's Landing, better to arrive as the hammer to his anvil than alone, with the realm calling you mad for fighting a war on two fronts. Take his respect. Give him parchment words in return. You need not love him. You need not keep every promise." Stannis's jaw tightened. "I keep my promises. That is what separates me from Robert, from Renly, from all the puffed-up peacocks squabbling over their chairs. Melisandre's smile did not quite reach her eyes. "Then craft a promise you can live with," she said. "One that binds him to you when the storms break. The Lord of Light teaches us to use all the weapons at our disposal. Stark steel may yet serve in his fire." Stannis stared down at the letter again. Robb's words were blunt, lacking in flowery titles or apologies. There was something almost honest in them, infuriatingly so. "He reminds me of Ned," Stannis said under his breath. "Honest as a hammer, too straightforward for his own good." He snorted. Ned was a fool, but he was a loyal one. If the boy is half as steady. He turned abruptly and thrust the scroll into a waiting servant's hand. "Fetch the Maester," he said. "I have a reply to dictate." As the servant scurried away, Melisandre tilted her head back, eyes on the reddening sky. "The pieces fall into place," she murmured. "Wolves, stags, lions, and things that were never meant to walk in sun. The night will be long, my king. Best to gather torches." The Raven from Dragonstone arrived 3 days after Jon's raid on the mountain's Outriders. Its wings were ragged from the long flight, its beak crusted with salt. It clung to the Maester's arm as if the world might fall away beneath it at any moment. Robb took the scroll himself in the war tent, breaking the seal with his thumb. The others watched him in tense silence. Catelyn, Jon, the Blackfish, Great Jon, Bolton lurking in the shadows with his peculiar stillness. "Well?" Catelyn asked when Robb had read it once, then twice more. Robb passed the parchment to Jon. "Stannis Baratheon has decided I am inconvenient but necessary," he said dryly. "He recognizes nothing, not my crown, not my brotherhood with him in Robert's cause. But he will accept my temporary autonomy in the north and Riverlands while greater usurpers sit the throne in King's Landing." Jon scanned the letter. Stannis's hand was as sharp and unforgiving as the man's reputation. The words were stiff but clear. "He offers alliance in fact, if not in name," Jon said. "Coordinated strikes against the Lannisters. Support by sea when the time comes to assault the city. In exchange, he expects us not to hinder him when he takes the throne." "And when he sits it?" Bolton asked, voice mild. "What then? Does he expect us to kneel after the lions are gone?" "He expects obedience," Catelyn said. "If Robert is any guide, the Baratheons have little patience with half measures." "Robert had patience for wine and whoring enough," Great Jon muttered. "The letter says nothing of what comes after," Jon said, "which cuts both ways. He does not promise to leave us be. He also does not threaten us if we refuse to kneel. He speaks as if the question is beneath him now, something to be sorted once the lions are toppled." "Convenient," Bolton murmured. Robb folded his arms. "He has ships," he said. "More than we could hope to build in 10 years, and we do not have 10 years. Sansa's pale face flashed before him, Arya's fierce eyes. Each time he passed the red keep in his mind's eye, he could not help but imagine them behind its red walls, caged with lions. "All of that matters only if we live to argue it," the Blackfish said. "Stannis's offer is clear. He will fight the Lannisters, and we may fight beside him. If we do, we might take the city. If we do not, we leave him to bleed alone while the lions and the Reach tear at each other's throats. And risk Tywin turning his full gaze back on us." Robb looked at Jon. "You've been most eager to tie this war to the one beyond the wall," he said, half amused, half weary. "What do you think?" Jon chose his words carefully. He could feel Catelyn's eyes on him, weighing every syllable. "Stannis is not a man to love," he said, "but he is a man who keeps his word. If he says he will fight the Lannisters, he will fight them until he cannot stand. Better that we help shape how and where he does it." "You'd have us ally openly," Catelyn said, distrust thick in her tone. "I'd have us make it clear that we will not kneel," Jon replied, "but that we will march where our interests align. We both want Joffrey off the throne. We both hate what the lions have done to our kin. We both need the realm to see their blood in the streets so they know the lions can be killed. He met Robb's eyes. If Stannis takes the throne and keeps his word, we gain a hard, just king who cares more for law than love. If he takes it and breaks his word, then he proves himself no better than the usurpers he decries. And the North remembers. Grachan's booming laugh filled the tent. "Listen to the crow bastard," he said, clapping Jon's shoulder hard enough to stagger him. "Already planning how to cast down a king we haven't set up yet." "We must survive to play at overthrowing kings," Bolton said, but there was a faint curl at the corner of his mouth, a ghost of amusement or something like it. Robb looked down at the letter again, then set it on the table with finality. "We answer him," he said. "We will fight beside him against the Lannisters. We will not declare for his crown, but we will declare against Joffrey's. He can dress that up however he likes when he speaks to his own men." Catelyn exhaled slowly. "You make many enemies," she said. "Cersei, Joffrey, Tywin, perhaps even Renly if he still lives and cares. Now Stannis will count you an ally, but a wary one. This road grows narrower." "It leads where it must," Robb said. He raised his gaze to the map, where lion and wolf and stag pieces stood in precarious balance. "We strike Tywin next, hard. If we can break his main host before we march south, the road to King's Landing will be less choked with lion corpses waiting to bite." Jon pictured the burned villages again, the pile of Gregor's men burning in the dawn. "You know where he'll push," he said. "Toward the fords, toward any place he can threaten Riverrun and draw you out. Use that. Let him think you are more predictable than you are." Robb's eyes glinted. "You and Uncle can work out the details," he said. "You're both too fond of traps for my peace of mind. Tell me when you've built one that won't snap on our own feet." Ghost and Grey Wind both stirred, as if sensing the blood to come. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. A cold, clear light seeped through the canvas. War moved, like a great beast turning in its sleep. And somewhere beyond the edges of their map, another, older danger watched and waited, patient as ice. The sun broke through the clouds the day Robb's host moved out. It turned the wet fields to a patchwork of shining water and dark earth, the river to a ribbon of hammered silver. Banners snapped in a sharp, cold wind. Gray direwolves, silver trout, a dozen smaller sigils from the north and riverlands. The columns stretched for miles. Knights on armored destriers rode near the front, their helms gleaming. Behind them came ranks of spearmen and archers, their boots sucking at the soft ground. Wagons creaked under loads of grain, arrows, salted meat, barrels of oil. Smiths walked beside mobile forges, their hammers ringing even on the march. Camp followers trailed at the rear, a ragged tide of women, children, whores, and men too broken to fight but too stubborn to stay behind. Jon rode near the Vanguard, not at Robb's side. That place was crowded with lords and banners, but close enough that Grey Wind's gray shape was often in his peripheral vision. Ghost paced at his horse's flank, tongue lolling, ears pricked. The men had heard about the night raid. Word traveled along ranks faster than orders from any lord. They knew that a band of Gregor's men lay in ashes now, their banners thrown into the fire. They knew that a white wolf had torn out throats in the dark. They looked at Jon differently now, not as Ned Stark's inconvenient byblow, but as the man the wolf followed into the enemy's camp. "Snow!" A voice called from somewhere behind him. "Tell your beast to keep away from my horse's arse. Will you? He keeps looking at it like it's supper." Laughter rippled along the line. Jon half-turned, grinning despite himself, and whistled softly. Ghost flicked an ear at him, then moved a little farther from the horses, as if putting on a show of obedience. Robb rode up the line then, flanked by the Blackfish and Bolton. His expression was serious, but when his gaze met Jon's, a flicker of warmth passed between them. "Our Outriders say Tywin moves east," Robb said. "He means to test the crossings at the Red Fork. Edmure holds some, but not all. If we're quick, we can reach him before the lions do. The old lion counts on you rushing to save your uncle," Bolton murmured. It is what most nephews would do. I'm not most, Robb said. I have my uncle here. He nodded to the Blackfish. And I have you, and Jon. Bolton inclined his head, the motion smooth. You propose we let Edmure bleed? I propose we let Tywin think Edmure is alone, Robb replied. Jon. Jon reined his horse a little closer. The Red Fork has more crossings than the main fords, he said. Smaller, harder to move an army over, but good for small forces. If we let Tywin press hard at the obvious places, he'll commit more men there to break what he thinks are Edmure's only defenses. And we hit him where he's not looking, the Blackfish finished. From the flank. Hard. Robb nodded. We break some of his teeth. Not all. We want him angry. We want him to chase us when we pull back. Back where? Bolton asked. There was no challenge in his tone, only curiosity. Toward ground of our choosing, Robb said. Somewhere we can fold him in on himself. Jon thought of the old bear's lessons at the wall, of the maps he had pored over with Maester Aemon, learning the lay of the land beyond the wall as if his life depended on it. It had, still did. There's a bend in the Red Fork east of here, he said. High ground on the north bank, marshier on the south. If we feign a retreat, draw his vanguard across, then hit them hard while the rest of his host is still on bad ground. We could break their front before their rear even knows it's in a battle, the Blackfish said, eyes sharpening. He looked at Jon with new respect. You've an eye for terrain. I've walked enough of it, Jon said. Beyond the wall, if you chose the wrong ground, you didn't get to choose anything else after. Robb's mouth curved. We'll send riders ahead to scout the bend, he said. If it's as you say, we can make the old lion regret ever teaching us to hunt. Bolton's gaze flicked between them, unreadable. Tywin Lannister will not be pleased to learn that Ned Stark's bast brother learned more at the wall than mere oath-chanting. Good, Jon said. Let him be angry. Angry men make mistakes. Robb laughed softly, spoken like someone who's watched Theon with a skin of wine. They rode on, the host rolling forward like a great, creaking beast. Jon glanced back once, at the long line of men and wagons and banners, and felt the weight of what they were attempting settle over him. They marched not just to save Riverrun, not just to bloody the Lannisters, but toward something larger. Toward a battle that would decide whether the North had the strength and unity to face what lay beyond the wall. Ghost barked once, short and sharp, as if to remind him that the path was never straight. Jon reached down and brushed his fingers along the direwolf's back, drawing steadiness from the touch. Step by step, he murmured. One battle at a time. The Red Fork glowed like molten copper in the setting sun, its waters swollen from recent rains. At the bend Jon had described, the north bank rose in a gentle slope, studded with rocks and sparse trees. The south bank was lower, the ground soft and treacherous, reeds nodding in the chill breeze. Tywin's vanguard had taken the bait. They came on proud and bright, banners streaming, drums rolling. Heavy cavalry splashed into the ford, churned through the shallows, muddying the water. The first ranks reached the north bank and began to climb, hooves slipping on the wet grass, lances glittering. Edmure Tully's men held the crest, shields locked, spears braced. They looked thin against the red tide, but they held. From the cover of a copse further along the bank, Robb Stark watched, expression taut. Beside him, Jon tightened his grip on Longclaw's hilt. Wait, the Blackfish murmured. Let them bite. Below, the clash began. Lannister riders crashed into Tully spears, horses screaming, men shouting. Steel rang on steel. The line buckled, then held, then bent again. They're committing more, Jon said. He could see additional cavalry pressing into the ford, pushing their fellows ahead of them. The south bank churned under iron-shod hooves, the mud sucking at their feet. Men shouted as horses stumbled, legs vanishing into unseen holes. Good, Robb said softly. Come on, you bastards. Come further. He raised his hand. Across the field, on a low ridge to their left, horns answered. Northern riders surged forward, Umber, Glover, Karstark, banners streaming, gray wind racing ahead like a streak of living steel. They came down on the Lannister flank, not where shields were locked and lances leveled, but where men fought to gain purchase on treacherous ground. "Now," Robb said. "Jon." "I see it," Jon replied. They spurred their horses together, bursting from the cover of the trees with a cadre of picked riders at their backs. Blackfish, Bolton, a knot of Winterfell men, and the scouts Jon had led in the woods. Ghost bounded ahead, a pale arrow pointing the way. The Lannister vanguard, focused on crushing Edmure's line, did not see them at first. Those who did had only a heartbeat to shout before northern steel carved into their exposed side. Jon's horse leapt a fallen man, hooves splashing red and brown. A knight in gilded armor turned toward him, eyes wide behind his helm. Jon's world narrowed to the opening at the man's armpit, where plate met mail. He drove Longclaw in there, feeling the shock as Valyrian steel parted lesser metal, bit flesh. Hot blood sprayed his face. Gray wind crashed into another rider, jaws closing on the horse's throat, dragging it down in a flailing tangle of limbs and steel. Ghost slipped under a spear thrust, fangs latching onto a calf, wrenching hard. The man went down screaming. A rider behind Jon finished him with a spear thrust. Bolton's men moved through the chaos with eerie deliberation, their blades precise. Where others hacked and shoved, Dreadfort steel slid into gaps, left men gasping out their lives without drama. "Press them," Robb shouted. "Drive them into the river." The northern flank hit like a hammer. The Lannister vanguard, already struggling up the slope into Edmure's spears, found itself squeezed between two fronts. Some tried to wheel their horses to fall back to the ford, but the press of men behind them made that nearly impossible. Horses reared and screamed, crashing into one another. Arrows arced from the ridge where Stark archers had hidden, shafts thudding into exposed backs and unhelmed heads. Men toppled from saddles, dragged under hooves. Jon slipped through the melee like water, Longclaw rising and falling. A man in crimson lunged at him. Jon parried, the shock jarring his arm, then twisted and cut low, severing the tendons of the man's horse. Beast and rider went down in a rolling tangle. He had little sense of time, only the rhythm of breath, the weight of the sword in his hand, the echo of Winterfell's yard in his muscles. Once, through a gap in the chaos, he glimpsed Robb, face smeared with blood, gray wind leaping beside his horse, the young king's sword cutting a bright arc through the air. They drove the Lannisters back step by bloody step. Men slipped on the churned ground, dragged down by their own comrades. Some, seeing the press and the river beyond, threw down their weapons and tried to flee. Those who could reach the ford, stumbling into the water. Many did not. Arrows found their backs. Spears took them as they ran. "Let some go," Robb shouted at one point, voice raw. "Let them run. I want stories told of this." The Blackfish grunted approval. A routed enemy could carry tales faster than any raven. Gradually, the fight became less a battle than a slaughter. The Lannister vanguard broke, the survivors streaming back across the ford, some discarding shields to swim when their horses were dragged under by the weight of mail. Edmure's men held the crest, exhausted but exultant. Northern riders pulled up, chests heaving, horses blowing hard. The air was thick with the smell of blood and river water, of sweat and fear and iron. Jon reined in at Robb's side. His arms shook with the effort of keeping Longclaw steady. Ghost panted at his stirrup, muzzle slick with gore. "That's a bite he'll feel," Robb said, breathing hard. He stared across the river, where Lannister trumpets called ragged retreat. Not the whole host, but enough to make the old lion roar. "He'll roar straight at us," the Blackfish said. His grin was wolfish. "Good. Now we lead him where we want." Jon wiped his sword clean on a dead man's cloak and sheathed it. His heart hammered in his chest, not only from exertion. They had done it. They had taken one more step toward breaking Tywin's spine, toward a road that led, inexorably now, toward King's Landing. Night came with a clear sky, the stars bright above the camp. Fires dotted the riverbank, orange eyes in the dark. Men laughed in short, exhausted bursts, passing skins of wine, boasting of kills, binding wounds. The dead lay in neat rows beyond the outer ring of tents, cloaks pulled over faces, candles guttering at their heads. Near one of the larger fires, Robb's war council gathered again. This time there was no grand table, only a rough barrel turned on its side, a map weighted with stones. The air smelled of wood smoke and cooked meat, undercut by the metallic tang of lingering blood. Robb braced his hands on the barrel, eyes on the map. His hair stuck up in damp tufts. A smear of someone else's blood streaked his cheekbone. Jon stood opposite him, cloak thrown back, the heat of the fire warming his front while the night chilled his back. "We hit his vanguard hard," Robb said, "but not hard enough to break the host. That was never the point." "The point," the Blackfish said, tapping the map with a scarred finger, "was to make him angry, to make him think you reckless, bold, the boy who cannot resist a fight. He will pursue." Ricard Karstark nodded grimly. "Good, let him. I've men who itch to see Lannister armor crushed under their boots. My sons died because of their plotting." Bolton's pale gaze flicked to him, then back to the map. "Vengeance is sweet," he murmured, "but it can turn bitter quickly if taken without thought." "We have thought," Robb said, "more than the old lion gives us credit for. We pull back north and east, toward ground we know, toward where we can spring a greater trap." Jon traced a line with his eyes from their current position toward the interior of the Riverlands. "Not too fast," he said. "If we run, he'll suspect something. If we linger, he might regroup, call for reinforcements from Harrenhal." "Just enough," the Blackfish said. "A retreat that looks unwilling. Skirmishes at the edges, nothing more. Let him think you tired, stretched." "And then?" Catelyn asked. She had joined them quietly, a cloak wrapped tight around her shoulders. Grief had carved deeper lines into her face, but her eyes were clear. "We choose a place and shred him there," Robb said simply. "A field where his numbers don't matter, where he can't outflank us, where his cavalry is worth less than our wolves." "A narrow valley," Jon said. His mind returned instinctively to the lessons of the Watch, how to face things larger than oneself in places that made them smaller. Or ground broken by woods and hills. Force him to break his host into smaller pieces. "We can't rely on him walking into a perfect bowl," Bolton said. "He is not a fool. Offer him too obvious a trap and he will go around it. Then offer him something that looks like a mistake," Jon replied. "A ford poorly defended, a line slightly stretched, a hill that seems abandoned. Let him see an opening and think himself clever for spotting it." Catelyn frowned. "You ask a great deal of fortune. A misstep. We cannot afford another red wedding." Another surprise from his side. "There will be no wedding," Robb said, a dark humor twisting his mouth. "No guest right broken. Only steel against steel in open war. That I can stomach." Jon met Catelyn's gaze across the fire. "We have to risk something," he said. "If we content ourselves with skirmishes, Tywin will grind us down. He has more men to lose. We need a blow that makes the rest of the realm look twice. That makes Stannis see we're worth marching beside, not over." "And what of the north?" Catelyn asked softly. "Every mile you march away from it, winter marches toward it." Jon had no easy answer for that. The fire popped, sending a shower of sparks upward, a brief constellation before they died. "We fight here so we don't have to fight there alone," he said at last. "If we turn back now, Tywin follows. The lions will bring their own winter to our fields. Better to meet them here with allies at our back and a chance to break their teeth." Robb nodded slowly. "We'll move at dawn," he said. "Not far, just enough to make him choose to follow." He straightened. "Rest while you can. Tomorrow we start shaping the field that may break or save us." The council broke apart, men drifting back toward their tents. Catelyn lingered a moment watching Jon. "I do not trust this," she said quietly. This game with Baratheons and lions. This talk of thrones and ghosts. You don't have to trust me, Jon said. He was tired beyond words. The day's blood still seemed to cling to his skin, no matter how he scrubbed his hands. You only have to trust that I want the same thing you do. Her eyes shone in the firelight. And what do you think that is? For your children to live, he said. All of them, even the ones not born yet who know nothing of any of this. For there to be a Winterfell for them to come home to. For there to be a world left when the snow stops falling. She studied him a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she inclined her head, just a fraction. Then for their sake, she said, I will pray the gods favor your madness. She turned and walked into the dark, leaving Jon alone with the fire and his thoughts. Ghost came to his side, pressing against his leg, warm and solid. Madness? Jon murmured, watching the embers glow. Maybe, but in the distance he could almost hear other embers stirring. A colder fire, blue-white, creeping toward a horizon that too many still pretended was secure. The valley lay like a shallow wound in the land, its sides rising in gentle slopes dotted with scrub and bare-limbed trees. A ribbon of stream cut along one edge, its banks muddy, stones slick with frost. Mists clung to the low ground in the early light, muffling sound, turning the world to shades of gray. Jon sat his horse on a small knoll overlooking the valley. Beside him, Robb adjusted the strap on his helm, jaw set. Gray wind stood below, muscles taut, head low. Ghost was nearer, paws planted on the knoll's edge, eyes scanning the misted hollow. Below them, men moved into position with the quiet efficiency that comes from long marches and longer nights. Spearmen took places among the trees, shields ready. Archers knocked arrows behind hastily piled earthworks. Cavalry waited further back, horses snorting clouds into the cold air. They had chosen this place carefully, riding half the night to reach it. It was not perfect, no ground ever was, but it had virtues. The valley narrowed in the middle, forcing any army that entered to compress its ranks. The slopes gave archers angles. The stream made the right flank treacherous for heavy horse. We look exposed, Robb said, squinting. From a distance, with the mist, it will seem we've strewn ourselves thin. Tempting. Tywin will see over-eager boys, the Blackfish said, joining them, his horse's breath steaming. He'll see a chance to break you in the open and boast of it to every wine-sodden lord at court. Let him, Jon said. His stomach was a hard knot, but his voice stayed steady. He won't see what's between the trees until he's in it. By then his vanguard will be committed, his center pushing to match them, his rear still on the rise behind. He won't be able to pull back without tangling himself. And when he tries? Robb asked. We cut, Jon said simply. From the flanks, from the rear. Arrows from above. Wolves from everywhere. Gray wind barked once, as if in agreement. Ghost's lips peeled back from his teeth in a silent snarl. In the distance, faint and far, a trumpet sounded. Another answered. The ground seemed to hold its breath. He's coming, the Blackfish said. His eyes gleamed in the cold light. Let's see if the old lion likes the taste of his own trap. Robb slid his helm on, the stark direwolf crest catching the pale sun. He looked at Jon, and for a heartbeat they were boys again, standing in Winterfell's yard, swords in hand, the weight of their practiced blades nothing compared to this. Side by side, Robb said. Side by side, Jon echoed. They rode down the knoll toward their waiting men, wolves pacing with them. Behind the mists, beyond the valley, an old, patient danger stirred in the frozen far north. Here, now, a younger, more arrogant danger marched into a place where wolves had chosen the ground. The first Lannister banners crested the rise at the valley's mouth, lions snarling on crimson cloth. The war between Crown and North tightened another notch. And in that tightening, unseen by most, lay the first true chance that when the long night finally fell, there would still be a realm of men left to fight it.